Mommy, stop pretending. You promised you'd never leave me. The book slipped from Mara's fingers before her sentence could finish. Her breath caught mid-word, and her eyes fluttered as if trying to stay open. She dropped without warning. Her 7-year-old son, Vicky, blinked once. He thought she was joking. She always made silly faces to keep bedtime stories fun. But this was different. Her head hit the hardwood floor with a dull thud. The book landed beside her hand, pages still open. No sound came from her, no words, no breath, no groan. Vicky froze. "Mommy," he said. She didn't move. He stepped closer, barefoot, voice shaking now. "Mommy, stop pretending." Still nothing. He reached out and shook her arm. Her body felt heavy, too still. "You promised you'd never leave me," he whispered. Still nothing. The air in the room changed. It felt heavy, wrong, like the world suddenly pressed down on the house. Vicky backed away. He turned, bolted down the hallway, nearly tripping over his own feet. Her phone was on the table, but it wouldn't open. He tried the code, got it wrong. Tried again. Nothing. He didn't know what else to do. So, he ran to the wall near the kitchen. The old phone sat there, the one she never let him touch. It had big buttons, thick wires. She once called it useless. He lifted it with both hands, shaking. Tears ran down his cheeks. He pressed random numbers. He didn't know who he was calling. He just knew someone had to answer. The dial tone clicked. A voice answered. "Hello? Would your child know what to do if you collapsed with no one around? Like this video and drop a comment, because stories like this might help another parent prepare." The voice on the other end didn't sound friendly at first. It was low, cautious, like someone who didn't expect anyone real to be calling. "Who is this?" the man asked. Vicky gripped the phone tighter, pressing it to his face. "Please help me," he cried. "My mommy collapsed. She's not waking up. She's on the floor. I don't know what to do." There was a pause, a sharp inhale. The voice changed. It dropped the edge. "Okay. Okay, kid. Slow down for me." Vicky couldn't. She was reading me a story. Then she just fell. Her eyes closed. "She's not talking. She won't move." The man didn't yell. He didn't panic. His words came calm, short, steady. "What's your name?" "Vicky." "Okay, Vicky. I'm Nico. I used to help people for a living. You did the right thing calling. I'm going to stay with you, but I need your help." "I don't know how to help." Vicky wailed. "You already are," Nico said. "Now listen, can you put the phone near her mouth for a second? I need to hear if she's breathing." Vicky dropped to the floor, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone. He held it close to her lips. Nico stayed silent, listening. A few seconds passed. Then Nico's voice returned. "She's breathing," he said. "That's good. Now I'm going to ask you some questions, and you just answer them as best you can. We're going to help her together, okay?" Vicky sniffled hard. "Okay. Good boy," Nico said. "Stay right there with me, Vicky," Nico said. His voice stayed even, like nothing in the world mattered more than this moment. "I need you to look at your mummy's chest. Tell me if it's moving up and down." Vicky wiped his nose with the back of his hand and leaned closer. His face hovered inches above hers. "Yes," he said quickly. "A little." "Good. That means air is going in and out," Nico replied. "Now listen carefully. I need you to help me keep her safe until other people arrive. Are they coming?" Vicky asked, panic rising again. "They will," Nico said. "But first, we need to make sure she's comfortable. Can you gently turn her onto her side?" Vicky hesitated. His mother looked heavy. Too heavy. "I can't," he cried. "She's big." "That's okay," Nico said. "Use both hands. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." Vicky pressed his palms against her shoulder and hip. He pushed with all his strength. Her body rolled slightly, then settled on its side. "I did it," he said, surprised. "You did great," Nico answered. "Now check her lips. What color are they?" Vicky leaned closer again. They're not blue. They're normal. That's good, Nico said. You're helping her more than you know. Vicky's breathing slowed a little. He stayed close to her face, watching every small movement, like it might disappear if he blinked. Is she going to die? He asked softly. Nico didn't answer right away. When he spoke, his voice carried weight, not fear. She's fighting, he said. And you're helping her fight. Vicky nodded, even though Nico couldn't see him. I'm scared, Vicky whispered. I know, Nico said. It's okay to be scared. Just don't leave her side. Talk to her if you want. Sometimes people hear more than we think. Vicky leaned down close to his mother's ear. Mummy, he said, his voice shaking. I'm here. You have to wake up. The man on the phone says you're strong. He paused, listening for something. Anything. From far away, a faint sound drifted through the house. A siren. Vicky's head snapped up. I hear something. Nico exhaled slowly. That's them, he said. You did it, Vicky. The sirens grew louder, their wail breaking through the stillness like sunlight cutting through fog. Vicky stood up and ran to the front door, still clutching the phone. They're outside. I see lights. Good, Nico said. Unlock the door for them. Then come back to your mum. Vicky fumbled with the latch. His fingers didn't want to work, but he managed. The door flew open and 2 uniformed paramedics rushed in, pushing a stretcher between them. Over here, he shouted. She's right here. The first paramedic knelt beside Mara. The second took the phone from Vicky's hand. Who is this? The man asked. Nico Davis, he answered. I kept the boy on the line. Mother is unresponsive but breathing. Side position. No trauma signs. He did everything right. The paramedic nodded into the phone. We've got her. Click. The line went dead. For a moment, Nico just stood in his quiet apartment, staring at the phone in his hand. His fingers shook. His heart thudded against his ribs like it hadn't in years. A kid called a random number, and somehow it reached him. Him, of all people. A man who hadn't answered calls from his own family in months. A man who avoided the past like it could infect him if he got too close. He sank into the kitchen chair. Somewhere, a woman was still breathing. A boy wasn't alone anymore. He didn't know their names. He didn't know the town. But he couldn't shake the sound of the boy's voice, or the way the house had gone still when the siren came. That night, Nico didn't sleep. He tried. He turned off the lights, lay flat in bed, and closed his eyes. But the silence brought everything back. The shaking in the boy's voice, the way he said please like it, was his last hope. The long, empty pause after the phone line disconnected. Nico sat up, rubbed his face, and walked to the window. Below, the streetlights burned steady. Cars passed. People lived their lives like nothing changed. But something had. He didn't know if the woman lived through the night. He didn't know if the boy had anyone else. He didn't know if they'd even remember the name Nico after today. But they lived, at least for now, because a call meant for no one reached the only person who could help. He had left that life behind years ago, retired early, moved away, disconnected on purpose. But fate didn't ask for permission. It reached into his quiet and forced his hands into motion. The boy did everything right. And Nico, for once, he didn't run. Some calls aren't wrong numbers. They're reminders you were meant to answer. Would your child know what to do if the worst happened? Like this video to support real storytelling. And share your thoughts in the comments. We might feature your story next. The night had settled soft and still over the small farmhouse tucked between 2 faded hills in eastern Colorado. Inside, the only sound came from Mara Lyon's voice, low, warm and steady, as she read aloud from the worn pages of The Secret Garden. Vicky sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, his small elbows resting on her knees, eyes fixed on the book like the words were magic. You like this part? Mara asked with a tired smile. Vicky nodded quickly. I like when the garden comes back to life. When everything starts growing again. Mara reached down and brushed a hand over his curls. You always like the parts where things heal. He shrugged, shy but honest. I guess they were used to nights like this. Quiet, ordinary. After dinner, it was always a story, then lights out by 8:30. Mara had made peace with their routine. It gave her focus, control. She turned the page, clearing her throat. And Mary said, "The secret garden is always open, only if you believe it belongs to you." A small thump came from outside the window. Probably the wind, nothing unusual. She paused, listening for a moment. Vicky looked up. What was that? "Just the shutters," she said. "Keep listening." He nodded and leaned back into her lap. She smiled. The moment felt safe. Small, but full. Mara looked at her son again. His serious little face, the same deep brown eyes that always caught everything she tried to hide. He had grown fast, too fast. She felt it more each year, in her joints, in her breath, in the way her body begged for rest she couldn't afford. Still, tonight felt light, normal. She started to read again, unaware that everything, every sound, every breath, every heartbeat, was about to shift. Mara opened her mouth to continue reading, but the sentence never left her lips. Something twisted inside her chest, tight and sharp, like her heart had seized mid-beat. Her hand flew to her sternum. The book slipped from her fingers and landed on the floor with a quiet slap. "Mummy?" Vicky asked, confused. She blinked hard. The room tilted slightly. Her throat felt tight, her skin hot. She tried to speak, but no words came. Another surge hit her, stronger. Her vision blurred. She let out a soft gasp, barely louder than a whisper. Vicky sat up straight. "Mommy." Mara staggered sideways. Her legs gave out, and she slid from the bed, landing awkwardly on her side. Her body didn't brace itself. Her arm bent beneath her. Her eyes fluttered, then stayed closed. Vicky jumped to the floor. "Mommy, stop playing." He reached out and shook her shoulder, first gently, then harder. "Wake up. You didn't finish the story." No answer. Her chest rose, but barely. The rise and fall of her breath was faint, uneven. One moment, there. The next, not. "Please," he whispered, voice cracking. "Please wake up." He pressed his ear to her chest. The sound was there, but faint, off rhythm, wrong. Vicky backed away, panic surging in his small frame. His eyes darted around the room like the walls might tell him what to do. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew, deep in his bones, that this wasn't a dream. It wasn't a game, and he was the only one who could help her. Vicky scrambled to his feet and ran for the kitchen table. His mother's phone lay there, screen dark. He grabbed it with both hands and pressed the button like he had seen her do. Nothing. He tried again. The screen lit up. Lines and numbers stared back at him. He pressed what he thought was right. The phone buzzed once, then locked again. "No," he said, his voice shaking. No, no, no. He didn't know the code. He never needed to. His mother always said he was too young. Tears spilled down his face. His hands shook so hard the phone almost slipped from his grip. He ran back to her, knelt beside her, touched her cheek. "Mummy," he said, louder now. "Wake up. Please." Her skin felt warm, too warm. Her breathing stayed uneven. Vicky looked around the house. The doors were closed, the windows dark, no neighbors close enough to hear him shout. Then he remembered the phone on the wall, the old one. He ran down the hallway, nearly tripping over his socks. The beige phone hung there, silent, heavy, forgotten. He reached up, lifted the receiver with effort, and pressed it to his ear. A low hum answered. He stared at the buttons. There was no screen, no lock, just numbers. He didn't think. He couldn't afford to. He pressed them fast, random, overlapping, some twice, some not at all. His fingers slipped. He pressed more. The ringing started. Once, twice. His heart hammered so loud he thought it might burst. "Please answer," he whispered. "Please." The ringing stopped. A voice came through the line. "Hello." Vicky sucked in a breath, and screamed into the phone. "My mommy collapsed. She's not waking up. Please help me." Nico Davis had spent most of the day in silence. That's how he liked it. No knocks, no calls, no noise. He stood barefoot in his kitchen, sipping lukewarm coffee and staring at the blinking microwave clock. The landline on the wall rang, sharp, unexpected, out of place. He flinched. Nobody called this number, not in years. He let it ring twice, then grabbed the receiver, expecting a mistake, or some automated message trying to sell him something. "Hello?" The scream on the other end knocked the breath out of him. "My mommy collapsed. She's not waking up. Please help me." Nico's chest tightened. "Wait, who is this? Slow down. I don't know what to do." The boy sobbed. "She's on the floor. She fell. She's not talking. Please don't hang up." Nico stepped back, steadying himself against the counter. The voice was young, raw, full of panic. Years of instinct rushed back like a dam breaking. He forced calm into his voice. "Okay. Listen to me. I'm going to help you. What's your name?" "Vicky." "Vicky, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm not going to leave you, but you have to do exactly what I say." The boy sniffled hard. "Okay. Is your mom breathing?" I don't know." Put the phone near her mouth. "Don't hang up." There was a shuffle, a pause. Nico leaned in, straining to hear. Soft, uneven breaths reached his ear. He closed his eyes. "She's breathing. That's good." He opened the drawer beside him, pulled out a pen and notepad, started writing numbers. His voice sharpened, focused. "I need your address, Vicky." "I don't know it. I don't know it." "Look around. Mail on the table? Anything?" Footsteps. More shuffling. Nico didn't let go. "I'm with you, kid," he said, softly now. "We're going to help your mom. But you have to keep talking to me. Can you do that?" "Yes," Vicky whispered. "Good," Nico said, even though his own hands were shaking. He had no idea who this boy was, no idea where he lived. But he knew this. He wasn't letting go. The moment the scream blasted through the receiver, Nico's first reflex was to pull the phone from his ear. His other hand hovered over the hook, ready to hang up. Probably a prank. Some kid pressing buttons. He didn't do chaos. Not anymore. But then he heard the second wave, soaked in panic, nearly breathless. "Please help me. She's not moving. Her eyes are still closed." Nico froze. That voice. That tone. It wasn't fake. No script, no game, no noise from some rowdy teen looking for attention. That was real fear. Deep fear. The kind you don't fake at 7 years old. Nico didn't hang up. He pressed the phone closer. "Hey, stop. Take a deep breath. Tell me what's going on." The boy stammered. "My mom, we were reading, and she dropped the book. She fell. She won't wake up. She's breathing, but weird." Nico's jaw clenched. His own breath slowed. He hadn't been in a field unit in years. He thought he left this life behind. But some things never leave you. "I need your first name," Nico said. "What can I call you?" "Vicky." "All right, Vicky. You're doing something very brave right now. I'm going to help you, okay?" A shaky voice answered. "Okay." In the silence that followed, Nico grabbed the notepad on his counter and started writing down the few details he had. He still didn't know where the kid was, but the tone in Vicky's voice left no question. This wasn't an accident waiting to be fixed. It was a life waiting to be saved. And now Nico was part of it, whether he wanted to be or not. "Vicky," Nico said, steady and clear, "I need you to stay with me. You're doing well. Now I'm going to help you check something important." The boy sniffed hard. "Okay. Look at your mum again," Nico continued. "I want you to tell me if her chest is moving. Up and down. Even a little." There was a pause. Soft footsteps. Fabric shifting. "Yes," Vicky said quickly. "It's moving, but slow." "That's good," Nico replied. "That means she's breathing. We don't need to push on her chest. We just need to help her breathe easier." Vicky let out a shaky breath of his own. "Now listen carefully," Nico said. I want you to put one hand on her shoulder and one on her hip. Gently roll her onto her side. Take your time. I'm small, Vicky said. She's heavy. I know, Nico answered. Use your whole body. I'm right here. Vicky grunted as he tried. His arms trembled. He pushed again. Harder this time. She moved, he said, surprised. Good, Nico said. That position helps keep her safe. Now stay close to her face. Vicky knelt down again. Talk to her, Nico added. Say her name. Let her hear you. Vicky leaned in. Mummy, he said, louder now. I'm here. Please wake up. Nico listened through the phone. He could hear faint breaths. Uneven, but there. You're helping her more than you know, Nico said. Now I need to ask you something else. Is her skin cold or warm? Vicky touched her arm. Warm. Okay, that's fine, Nico said. You're doing everything right. The boy's crying slowed. His words came clearer. I was scared, Vicky admitted. That makes sense, Nico replied. Being scared doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you care. Vicky stayed silent for a moment, then asked, Is she going to wake up? Nico didn't rush his answer. She's still here, he said. And you're helping her stay that way. Nico reached for his laptop with one hand, while keeping the phone pressed to his ear. Vicky, he said, we need help on the way to you. Can you find any piece of mail? Something with your address? He heard scrambling. Then the boy's voice again, breathless. There's something on the counter, a letter. Read it to me, Nico said. Vicky read slowly, stumbling over a few numbers, but it was enough. Nico typed the address into the search bar, narrowed down the location, and called the local emergency dispatch on his second phone. This is a medical emergency, Nico said firmly. Unconscious adult female, breathing but irregular, 7-year-old on the line with me, remote location. I'll stay connected. He gave the address, landmarks, and details. The dispatcher confirmed the ambulance was already en route. Back on the call with Vicky, Nico kept his voice low and even. Help is coming, buddy. You just keep watching her. If anything changes, you tell me right away. Okay, Vicky whispered. I'm scared again. That's okay, Nico replied. You don't have to be strong the whole time. But right now, you're doing something really important. Vicky sniffed. She looks the same, still breathing. That's good, Nico said. Let's keep it that way. Nico glanced at the clock. He had no idea how long the kid had been alone before he picked up. Every second felt long. I didn't know who to call, Vicky said suddenly. Her phone wouldn't open. You did exactly what you were supposed to, Nico said. You called someone. And someone answered. The boy didn't respond. Nico didn't push him. He knew the quiet now wasn't fear, it was focus. Vicky was watching his mother, protecting her with all the strength he had. And Nico wasn't letting go until someone else took over. Vicky flinched as red and white lights splashed through the windows. They're here, he shouted, almost dropping the phone. I see them. Good, Nico said, standing up straighter in his own kitchen. Go unlock the door and wave them in. Leave the phone on if you can. Vicky ran. The front door creaked open, and boots pounded against the porch. Over here, Vicky yelled. She's in here. Nico listened as new voices filled the space. Calm, fast, professional. Adult female, late 30s, one paramedic said. Pulse weak but stable, another added. Nico stayed silent, still holding the receiver. Then a deeper voice picked up the phone. Who is this? Nico Davis, he answered. I was on the line with the boy. Talked him through side positioning, vitals check. She was breathing the whole time. You did good, the paramedic said. We've got her. The line clicked. Dead. Nico lowered the phone slowly. For a second, the silence felt too loud. He stared at the wall, hearing none of the chaos anymore, just his own breath and the quiet buzz of the old refrigerator. He didn't know the woman's name. He didn't know the boy's full story, but he knew this. They were alive. And somehow they'd called him. a man who hadn't picked up for anyone in a long time. The light above her flickered softly. Mara blinked once, then twice. Her throat felt dry. Her limbs were heavy, like she hadn't moved in days. Her eyes scanned the room. White ceiling, soft beeping, plastic tubes, a dull ache wrapped around her chest like a warning. She tried to sit up, but the wires tugged back gently. A nurse noticed. "You're awake," the woman said gently. "Don't move too fast. You fainted and hit your head." Mara opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her lips cracked as she tried again. "My son, he's okay," the nurse said, stepping closer. "He's been staying with the neighbor since the ambulance brought you in. Brave kid. He got help when you couldn't." Mara's head turned slightly toward the window. Trees swayed quietly outside. The world looked calm, untouched. But her body remembered everything. The sudden burn in her chest, the floor coming fast, the darkness that pulled her down too quick to fight. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been here 2 nights," the nurse replied. "Rest is the best thing for you right now." Mara let her eyes close again, not from comfort, but from confusion. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had things to do. Deadlines, groceries, bills. There was no room in her life for stillness. But her body had decided otherwise. She'd collapsed in front of her son. And somehow, she was still alive. Later that morning, the doctor came in. He was calm, older, with a pen clipped to his coat pocket and a clipboard in hand. "You gave your body a scare," he said as he scanned her chart. "But you're lucky. You came in breathing, and your heart stabilized on its own." Mara shifted under the blanket. "What happened?" "You fainted," he said. "Hard. You hit the floor. It wasn't just fatigue. You experienced an episode caused by irregular electrical signals in your heart. They can interrupt rhythm, drop blood pressure, knock oxygen off balance. That's likely what caused the collapse." She blinked. "I didn't even know I had heart problems." "You wouldn't," he replied. "Most people don't, until it gets loud enough to force a hospital visit." He lowered the clipboard. "I'm not here to scare you, Mara, but your body has been talking to you. You've ignored it. That can't continue." She looked down at her hands. Her fingers felt colder now. Stress, sleep deprivation, poor diet. Those are pressure points. Add heart rhythm issues to the mix. It's a risk you can't afford to keep brushing off. Mara nodded slowly. She didn't need a lecture, but he wasn't wrong. "I work," she said simply. "I know," he replied. "But now you're also recovering. That comes first." She hated the truth in that. He set the chart down. "We'll run more tests before discharge. But when you leave, you'll need a follow-up with a specialist. No shortcuts." She didn't argue. She didn't have the strength. Still, something tugged at her. Something that happened before the sirens. Something that filled the gap between collapse and rescue. It wasn't just Vicky. There was a voice. A man's voice. Steady, calm, assured. And for a moment, it was the only thing that made her feel safe. Mara sat up in bed later that evening, legs draped over the edge, hospital socks scraping the tile. The monitor beside her beeped softly, steady and slow. She stared at the wall, but her mind drifted far past it. Years of pushing, years of showing up when no one else would. She had raised Vicky alone since the day he was born. No father in the picture, no steady hand to lean on. Just her, working double shifts, accepting contract jobs that paid enough to keep them stable, never permanent enough to feel secure. She remembered sleeping on couches, while Vicky napped in car seats. She remembered fixing meals with half ingredients and a full smile, pretending nothing was missing. She remembered every time she took a breath through tears, telling herself, "Just finish this week." And she did, because she always did. But each time she pushed through, something inside her pulled tighter. She could feel it now, how her chest had started aching months ago, how short her breath had become when walking stairs, how often she ignored it, because rest for her was a luxury, one she couldn't afford. She couldn't afford weakness. Couldn't afford the judgment in people's eyes if she slowed down. Couldn't afford the risk of anyone thinking she couldn't handle motherhood on her own. So she powered through everything, until her body forced her to stop. She rubbed her temples, guilt creeping in. Vicky saw her fall. Vicky was the one who had to act. He had to call someone. Alone. The thought knotted her stomach. But he didn't freeze. He didn't run. He saved her. That part she couldn't forget. Mara woke before dawn the next morning. The hospital room was still, bathed in soft shadows. Vicky's voice had returned in her dreams, urgent, trembling. But it was the man's voice she heard last. She sat up slowly, her chest tight, not from pain but from thought. She couldn't shake it. He'd spoken to her son like he knew exactly what to say. Not a moment of hesitation, no panic, no empty comfort, just action. She remembered the way Vicky described him when the nurse asked. He told me what to do. He stayed on the phone. He made me feel like I wasn't alone. Mara hadn't thought much of it at first, just gratitude, relief. Her son had found someone. A kind neighbor, maybe. But that voice, calm, sharp, practiced. It didn't sound like someone guessing. It sounded like someone who'd seen that kind of fear before. And when she asked the paramedics if they'd spoken to him, one of them had nodded. Yeah. Said his name was Nico. He kept the kid calm, gave us solid information. Nico. No last name, no number. She didn't know him, had never met anyone by that name, but something about it stuck. She closed her eyes again. In those moments, when her body stopped obeying her, when breath became labor, she hadn't felt alone. Somehow, through the static of distance, his voice had filled the space that fear left behind. She didn't know where he was, didn't know why her son's fingers had reached that number. But she knew one thing for sure. She was alive because someone answered, and she wouldn't forget that voice. Time passed. 3 years moved like water, fast in moments, slow in others. But everything about their life shifted after that night. Vicky grew taller, more curious, more aware. He still carried the softness of a child, but his eyes saw more than most kids his age. He started locking the front door twice. He reminded his mother to rest. He didn't like when she skipped meals. He never forgot what it felt like to see her collapse. Mara changed too, but not in the way people expected. She didn't slow down. She simply got smarter about how she worked. After months of recovery and routine doctor visits, she left the rigid demands of her old job and started working freelance, consulting for companies that needed short-term results without long-term hires. It gave her freedom, flexibility, and control over her hours. It also allowed her to stay close to Vicky, who was now in 3rd grade and growing more independent by the week. She set up a home office, built a network of clients across 3 states, and carved out a reputation for being sharp, honest, and brutally efficient. No fluff, no shortcuts. People respected her. Some feared her, but few dared to underestimate her. Still, she kept her circle small. She didn't date. She didn't entertain the idea. Her son came first, and the quiet second. The only man who lingered in her memory was the voice from the phone. And not because of romance, but because he'd shown up in the moment she needed someone most, and never asked for anything in return. She'd never heard from him again, didn't know where he lived, didn't even know if he still remembered the call. But some things leave an imprint, soft, invisible, permanent, like the sound of help arriving through a child's scream. Mara sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, email glowing. Subject line, project lead opportunity, immediate need in Denver. It came from a former client who now worked with one of Colorado's rising real estate investment firms. They needed an independent project lead for a new commercial development, someone with experience managing complex logistics, zoning issues, and subcontractor contracts. The role paid well. The contract was tight. 2 months, full-time. Mara narrowed her eyes at the screen. Denver. She hadn't worked that far out since Vicky was born. Most of her contracts stayed in state, close to home, close to routine. But this job offered everything she usually had to fight for: autonomy, strong pay, and a guaranteed end date. She looked over at Vicky, stretched across the living room floor, flipping through a workbook. He was older now, wiser, more self-sufficient, but still hers. "Hey," she said, setting her coffee down. "What do you think about us spending the next couple of months somewhere new?" He looked up. "Like where?" "Denver." He grinned. "Does it snow there?" "Sometimes." "I'm in." She smiled. That was all the answer she needed. The next morning, she signed the contract. Denver was calling. A new city, a new project. She didn't expect anything more than work, results, and the satisfaction of keeping her name clean and respected in her field. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have predicted, was who would be sitting on the other side of that contract. Mara stepped into the lobby of the downtown building, her heels clicking against polished floors. The air smelled like new money, cool, crisp and sharpened by success. She signed in at the desk. Mara Lyon. Here for the 10 a.m. Onboarding. The receptionist smiled politely, handed her a badge, and pointed toward the executive elevators. Top floor. Conference room B. Mara nodded, took the elevator, and used the ride to mentally run through the project brief again. Zoning approvals, contractor assessments, budget timelines. Everything about the assignment was clean, professional, straightforward. At least, that's how it seemed on paper. The elevator chimed open. She stepped into a hallway lined with glass and steel, the Davis Holdings logo etched across every door. She knew the name. Everyone in her industry did. Davis Holdings had real estate footprints in nearly every major city west of the Mississippi. Powerful but quiet. The kind of firm that didn't ask for attention, they commanded it by showing results. Mara hadn't connected the dots until now. She entered the conference room and scanned the faces seated at the long, sleek table. Mostly men. Mostly senior-level types. She walked in with the kind of confidence that made people pause. No hesitation, no apology. The lead project coordinator stood and greeted her. "Ms. Lyon, right on time. Have a seat. We're just waiting on one more." She sat, opened her folder, and listened as they ran through project scope and expectations. A door clicked open behind her. The coordinator straightened slightly. "And this is Mr. Davis. He'll be overseeing approvals on behalf of the board." Mara turned her head, and everything stopped. Nico Davis. Older. Broader shoulders. Sharper jaw. His walk was quiet, but deliberate. He took the seat at the head of the table like he'd done it 100 times, and only then did his eyes meet hers. His expression didn't change. Not yet. But something passed between them. Recognition didn't come instantly. Only the quiet weight of something familiar. Mara's pen hovered over her notepad. Her mind split in two. Half of her tracked every word the project coordinator said, timelines, contracts, zoning approvals. The other half stared at the man across from her. Nico Davis. She knew, now, without question. It was the same voice. The same eyes. The man who stayed on the line with her son. The man who coached Vicky through one of the worst moments of their lives. He didn't recognize her. Not yet. To him, she was just another consultant. But she watched him. How he sat back slightly as she spoke. How his gaze lingered longer than necessary. There was something quiet in his stare. Careful. Curious. Still, she said nothing. Not because she didn't want to, because she wasn't sure how. At the end of the meeting, the coordinator stood. "Ms. Lyon, we'd like to move forward." "Mr. Davis, final word?" Nico's gaze stayed on her for half a second longer than expected. "You come highly recommended," he said finally. "But I don't mix business with distractions." The room went still. Mara raised an eyebrow, her voice cool and clipped. "Then you won't have a problem with me." Nico blinked. Just once. His jaw tightened. A flicker of something crossed his face. Approval, maybe. The meeting ended without another word between them. Mara walked out without looking back. But as the elevator doors closed, she exhaled slowly. The man who helped save her life didn't know he had once held it in his hands. And she wasn't ready to tell him. Not yet. Nico watched her leave the room. His eyes followed her posture, her stride, the confidence in the way she didn't hesitate. Mara Lyon. The name on her file matched the woman in front of him, but something about her lingered longer than the paper trail. He didn't know where the feeling came from, but it stuck. She was sharp, calm, present in a way most people weren't, and yet something tugged at him. Not attraction, though that wouldn't have surprised him. It was something else, something quiet and persistent, familiar, but he didn't place her. He assumed she was just another polished professional, hoping to ride a high-paying contract into something permanent. He'd seen it before. Contractors who played the game well, but didn't last past the pressure. Still, when she spoke, he listened. Not because he had to, because she didn't sound like someone hoping to impress him. She sounded like someone who didn't care who sat at the head of the table. That unsettled him. Not many people challenged him in silence. She did. Nico closed the folder in front of him and leaned back in his chair. He glanced out the window, but saw nothing. His thoughts were on the consultant who said almost nothing and still shifted the tone of the room. He didn't know her story, but he didn't trust her yet either. That was his first mistake. 2 days into the project, Nico had already made up his mind. Mara Lyon was too polished, too quick, too perfect. She never asked for clarity, never stalled. Her answers were sharp, clean, decisive, too clean in his eyes. He dealt with consultants who were good, but the ones who came in with that much confidence, they usually had something to prove, or something to hide. She didn't try to get close. She didn't play the room. She focused on the work and left right after, and that made Nico watch her harder. In the next budget review, he leaned forward as she walked through a discrepancy in the supply chain report. She laid out the problem, offered 3 options, then gave her recommendation, all before he could ask. He didn't speak right away. "You seem unusually prepared," he said, leaning back. She didn't blink. "That's what you hired me for." He smiled slightly. "Or you're angling for a longer contract." She looked at him, not rude, not amused either. "I bill by delivery, not desperation." The room went quiet. One of the junior managers shifted in his seat. Another tried not to smile. Nico didn't respond. He made a note on his tablet instead. "She's good." Too good. He wasn't sure yet. He didn't trust people who made things look that easy. And despite everything she did right, a part of him was waiting for her to trip. He didn't know it yet, but that doubt would cost him more than he expected. By the second week, it became clear to everyone. Mara didn't flinch. Not when Nico questioned her timelines. Not when he interrupted mid-sentence. Not even when he dismissed her input with a look instead of a word. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't backpedal. She matched him, point for point, logic for logic. In one meeting, he challenged her projection on subcontractor delays. "We've used those teams for years," he said. "They don't miss deadlines." Mara didn't skip a beat. And yet their last 2 projects came in 9 and 11 days late. Respectfully, loyalty doesn't cancel patterns. The room fell silent. Nico glanced around. No one moved. Then he nodded once. "What's your solution?" "Pre-vetted alternates on standby. If they stall, we pivot. We lose 0 time." He leaned back, jaw tight. She'd done her homework. Again. Every time he tried to push her off balance, she came back stronger. Not arrogant, not showy, just solid. She didn't flirt. She didn't flatter. She didn't ask for approval. She gave facts, offered options, delivered results. More than once, Nico caught himself watching her after meetings ended, waiting to see if she would soften, slip, second guess. She never did. He couldn't decide if that made her more impressive or more dangerous. The others noticed it too. Senior staff started deferring to her, not out of fear but respect. Nico wasn't used to someone walking into his space and refusing to shrink. Mara didn't shrink, and that forced him to rethink the rules of the room. Late Thursday afternoon, Nico lingered near the glass wall of his office, watching the team filter out for the day. Mara was still at her desk across the floor, calmly organizing documents into folders, focused as always. He stepped out. "Ms. Lyon." She looked up. "Yes?" "We have a board dinner tomorrow," he said. "Private venue. I thought it might be useful for you to attend. She paused. Useful for what exactly? She asked. To meet some of the people making decisions, Nico replied smoothly, and to clarify a few strategy points. She stood, slowly closing her laptop. Do you normally invite project leads to dinners outside scope? Only when they're worth the conversation. There was no smile behind her stare. Is this about business, or do you expect me to play polite so I seem agreeable? He held her gaze. It's not personal. Exactly, she said, which is why I'll pass. Nico's jaw flexed. You're turning down a direct invite from the head of this project. I'm declining an unnecessary one, she replied, her voice calm. If there's something you need clarified, send it in writing. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday. She picked up her bag and walked past him without waiting for a response. He stood there for a few seconds, eyebrows slightly raised. She wasn't just good at her job. She knew who she was, and she wasn't here to impress anyone, especially him. He didn't know it yet, but that line she drew, that was the moment his interest shifted from curiosity to something he couldn't explain. Mara adjusted her hard hat as she stepped out of the SUV and into the half-built development site just outside the city limits. The sky above Denver had been clear just an hour ago, but now grey clouds pressed low, moving faster than expected. She walked the line with confidence, clipboard in hand, noting delivery errors, poor sealing along the foundation, and a subcontractor's oversight on steel placement. Nothing escaped her attention. Nico trailed behind her, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the site, but mostly her. He hadn't said much since she shut down his dinner invite the week before. She didn't mind. Silence was easier than small talk padded with power games. You missed a corner joint on that last column, she told the site foreman. That'll delay your inspection clearance. The man nodded, jotting it down, clearly more cautious around her than he had been with the previous male lead. Thunder cracked overhead, loud and close. Mara looked up. Nico did too. That wasn't in the forecast, he muttered. Wind whipped past them, strong enough to rattle scaffolding. We should clear the site, she said. It's not safe. But as the team began packing up, fat raindrops started falling fast. Workers jogged toward the vehicles, shouting instructions to each other. She turned back to gather the last of her inspection files when her heel caught on a loose plank. She never made a sound as she slipped, but he saw it. Her foot slid off the wood, and her clipboard flew from her hands. The papers fluttered like startled birds as her body tipped backward, momentum fast and unforgiving. Nico lunged forward without thinking. His arm wrapped around her waist mid-fall, the other grabbing her wrist. They stumbled together, boots skidding on the slick concrete until he braced them against a nearby pillar. She landed hard against his chest, both of them panting, soaked now as the downpour turned violent. Her fingers curled into his jacket without meaning to. You all right? He asked, voice low, barely audible over the rain. She nodded once, but didn't move. He didn't let go. Thunder rumbled again. The sky broke open in full. Mara finally stepped back, breath uneven. Thanks, she said, brushing her hair from her face. He didn't answer right away. His hand still hovered near her back, as if waiting for her to fall again. You could have cracked your head open, he said. Would have made your liability paperwork fun, she replied. He gave the smallest smile. She pulled her clipboard from a puddle and shook it off. Let's get under cover. They ran together toward the guard shack near the edge of the site, barely big enough for two but dry enough for now. Inside, the door slammed shut behind them. She leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Water dripped from her hair, her jacket clung to her skin, and her chest rose fast beneath it. That's when he noticed the change in her breathing. Her chest heaved in a rhythm that had nothing to do with the storm. Shallow, sharp, off-beat. Nico watched her closely. Her hand went to her ribs, her gaze unfocused. She wasn't shivering. She was fighting something else. Mara, he said, taking a step closer. Are you okay? I just need air, she muttered, turning away, gripping the edge of the metal table behind her. You have air, he said gently, But your lungs aren't pulling it right." She didn't answer. He stepped in. "Breathe with me," he said. "Look at me." She turned halfway, blinking through the fog building in her eyes. "You're not dying," he said calmly. "You've been triggered. This is panic, not failure." Her mouth parted, but the breath didn't come right. He raised his hand, not to touch her, but to guide her. "In through your nose. Count to 4. He breathed in. She copied him, barely. "Out through your mouth. Slow." He did it again. So did she. Again and again. Her heartbeat, which had sounded like war inside her chest, began to slow. She blinked. One deep inhale, one slower exhale. He didn't speak. He just breathed with her. When she finally stood upright again, her hands dropped from the table. She looked at him, wet shirt clinging to his collarbone, hair darkened by rain, eyes steady and close. "You've done this before," she whispered. His jaw tightened. He nodded once. "Yeah." Mara leaned against the wall again, still damp, but steady now. She studied him. His face was calm, but his shoulders held tension he hadn't let her see until now. "You didn't panic," she said. "You didn't ask what was wrong. You knew what to do." "I've seen it before," he replied. "Where?" Nico paused. The rain softened outside. "I used to be a paramedic," he said. "Before Davis Holdings. Before all this." She stared at him, stunned. Something clicked in the back of her mind. Something she hadn't allowed herself to name yet. Her lips parted. "You said your name was Nico." "Yeah. And you were in Oregon 3 years ago?" His brows lifted slightly. "I was." Her heart dropped to her stomach. She knew it now. She stepped closer. "You stayed on the phone with my son. You kept him calm when I passed out. You told him how to help me." Nico's face went still. She searched his expression. "You don't remember?" He blinked. "A boy called a landline. I stayed on the line until help arrived. I never knew who he was. Or the woman. I was the woman." He said nothing. "You helped save my life," she said. He stepped back slightly. His eyes searched hers, a mix of shock and disbelief settling in. "I didn't know." "I did," she said. "The moment you told me how to breathe. That voice, I never forgot it." The guard shack held a heavy silence as they stood face to face for the first time, truly knowing who they were. The air inside the small guard shack felt thick, but neither of them moved. Mara stood still, hands folded in front of her. Nico leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, his eyes steady but clouded. "You said you used to be a paramedic," she repeated, her voice lower now. He nodded. 12 years. "And then I burned out." She waited for more. "I was good at the job," he said. "Too good. I knew how to take control when everything fell apart. But one night I couldn't save a kid." Mara's breath caught. "I did everything right," he added, jaw tight. "But it didn't matter." He glanced at the window, raindrops sliding down like quiet truths. "After that, I stopped answering calls." Mara didn't speak. "I moved," he said. "Started fresh. Took my savings and built something safe. Something I could control." Her eyes narrowed. "And then a stranger's call reached you." He looked back at her, surprised. "That boy?" She nodded once. "That was Vicky. My son." Nico's face changed. Recognition, memory, guilt all flickering behind his eyes. "I didn't know," he said. "You weren't supposed to," she replied. "But you still answered." He looked down. "I haven't thought about that night in a long time." "I think about it every day," she said. Mara gripped the edge of the table behind her, bracing herself. When she first met Nico in the boardroom, his voice scratched something loose in her memory, but she'd buried it. Now, with the storm, the panic, the way he guided her breathing, she couldn't ignore it anymore. "You sound exactly like you did that night," she said. "Calm, cold even, but focused. Like nothing else mattered but getting me through." Nico's eyes softened. "It's how I was trained." "No," she said, shaking her head. "It was more than that. You weren't on duty. You didn't even know us. You could have hung up, but you didn't." He swallowed hard, a rare flicker of emotion showing through the cracks. "I remember the boy's voice," he said quietly. He said, "Please don't hang up. My mommy's not breathing." I didn't know how he reached me. The number, it was random. He didn't know the code to my phone, Mara said. He grabbed the old wall phone and dialed anything. Nico stared at her. He dialed me, yes. He exhaled and turned away, resting his palm on the rain-damp glass. I tried to forget that night, not because it hurt, because I didn't think it mattered. It did, Mara said. It still does. The truth sat between them like a third person in the room. She had known the moment he counted her breaths. This man had once carried her life without knowing her name. Now he knew it, and she was seeing him all over again. The storm had quieted outside, but the silence between them grew heavier by the second. Neither moved, neither reached out. But something in the air shifted. A shared knowing. A current that didn't need naming. She stood only a few feet away, damp clothes clinging to her skin, hair sticking to her cheeks. Yet she didn't fix it. She didn't cross her arms or turn away. She held his gaze. "You saved me," she said finally. Nico shook his head. "Your son did." "I was just the voice. Your voice was all I had in the dark," she replied. He didn't speak. Mara stepped closer, not out of affection, but clarity. Her words came quiet but sure. "That night changed me. I stopped chasing every dollar. I stopped pretending I had to be superhuman every minute. I slowed down finally, because I knew what losing everything almost looked like." He looked up at her. "I never expected to see you again," she added. "But the second you told me how to breathe, I knew." "And you didn't say anything?" he asked. She shrugged lightly. "I didn't owe you gratitude, and I wasn't sure you'd even remember." He nodded slowly. "I remember now." Something between them hummed, like a cord pulling tighter. Neither reached for it, but they both felt it. Not love, not yet. But something unshakable had returned, and neither one of them could ignore it anymore. They didn't talk on the drive back from the site. The rain had stopped, but the windows stayed fogged. Nico kept both hands on the wheel, eyes forward. Mara sat beside him, arms folded, head turned toward the passing trees. But the silence wasn't awkward. It was honest. Back at the Davis Holdings office, she gathered her soaked paperwork and headed for the elevator. Nico followed a step behind. When the doors closed, they stood in opposite corners. Finally, Nico spoke. "You're not like the others." "I'm not trying to be. That's why it bothers me." She raised an eyebrow. "That I don't care what you think? That you do everything right and still don't ask for anything?" She tilted her head. "What do you want me to ask for?" "I don't know," he said. "But it's easier to work with people when I know what they're angling for." "You don't angle." "Maybe that's the problem," she said. "You think every woman who walks into your company wants something she hasn't earned." His silence confirmed what she already knew. Mara stepped closer, only slightly. "You want to know why I said no to dinner, why I shut you down?" He nodded once. "Because you looked at me like I was an option, not a partner." Nico didn't defend himself. She turned toward the door. "But now you know who I am." "I do." The elevator dinged. They walked out, still separate. But something between them had shifted. The foundation had cracked, and they both knew it. Nico knocked on her office door just after 6. Mara looked up from her screen, her expression unreadable. She'd been expecting a post-project summary from legal, not him. He didn't step inside. He stayed in the doorway. "No meetings left today," she said. "Unless something changed." "No meeting," he replied. "Just a question." She leaned back slightly. "All right. I was thinking dinner," he said. "Not a work dinner, not a setup. Just me, you. Somewhere quiet." Her gaze didn't soften, but it didn't shut down either. "Why now?" she asked. "Because I know who you are now," he said, "and I respect how you move." She said nothing. "I'm not looking for anything from you," he added. "You don't owe me anything. You don't have to say yes. But I wanted to ask. He didn't try to charm her. He didn't over-explain. He just waited. Mara closed her laptop slowly. The pause that followed wasn't indecision. It was calculation. What's the place? Small Italian spot off 6th and Lincoln. No board members, no handshakes. She nodded once. I'll think about it. He smiled. Not wide, just enough. Let me know, he said. He turned and left. She watched the door long after it closed. This time, it didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a beginning. She said yes, not right away. But the next afternoon, she stepped into his office, handed over the revised timeline for the East lot, and paused at the door. 7:30 works, she said. That night, the restaurant was half-lit, tucked between shops with no name outside. Inside, the lights were warm, low. The smell of fresh herbs and garlic hung in the air. Nico stood as she arrived. He didn't stare at her dress, though it was deep navy and fit her like a second skin. He didn't compliment her out loud either. He just looked and really saw her. They talked, not about contractors or supply chains, about books, places, childhood, her love for numbers, his decision to walk away from emergency calls. She told him about her father, how he left, how her mother taught her strength without apology. He told her about his sister, how she was the only person he called every month, even when he didn't talk to anyone else. There was no flirting, no lines, just space. And they filled it with honesty. By the time dessert came, their hands weren't touching, but the space between them had closed. They left the restaurant together, not in a rush. He opened her car door. She stepped inside. But before closing it, she said, "Thank you for treating this like it mattered." He didn't say anything back. He didn't need to. The silence between them said enough. A week passed. Another late meeting wrapped at the downtown office. The team had gone home. The city lights flickered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Mara stood near the boardroom, reviewing a document. Nico approached slowly, waiting until she noticed him. "You're still here," he said. "So are you." Neither of them smiled, but the warmth was there. "You've been quiet," he said. "I've been focused." "And now?" She glanced at the windows, then back at him, still focused. But not only on work. He stepped a little closer. Not invading, just present. "What are you thinking right now?" He asked. "That you're waiting for me to make the first move." He didn't deny it. She closed the folder in her hand. "You assume a lot, Mr. Davis. Only with people I trust," he said. The room went quiet. She stepped forward. No hesitation, no tension, just purpose. And when she kissed him, it wasn't careful. It wasn't aggressive. It was steady, earned. Her hands rose to his collar. His touched the side of her face. No rush, no force. It was the kind of kiss that silenced doubt. The kind that acknowledged every choice, every barrier, every wall they'd torn down to reach that moment. When they finally pulled apart, neither spoke. There was no need to define what it was. They already knew. It wasn't planned. There was no candlelight or soft music or sweeping declarations. Just a night when they left the office together, stepped into his car, and didn't go separate ways. His apartment was quiet, minimal, clean. The view overlooked the city, but Mara didn't care about any of that. She stood in his kitchen, sipping water from a glass, watching him pull off his jacket. He moved with restraint, not urgency. She set the glass down, walked toward him. He didn't speak. She placed her palm flat on his chest. "Are you going to keep holding back?" "I didn't want to rush you," he said. "You didn't." She leaned in first. What followed wasn't chaos. It was calm, grounded, real. His hands didn't wander. They lingered. Her breath didn't hitch. It deepened. They moved slowly, not to prolong the moment, but to honor it. Clothes were peeled away, not tossed, not rushed. Her dress slid to the floor. His shirt fell next. Their hands memorized more than skin. They memorized trust. There were no loud moans, no messy passion, just silence between heartbeats and the warmth of being fully seen. They lay side by side afterward, not needing to say much. She rested her head on his shoulder. He traced gentle lines across her arm. "Still sure you don't need anyone?" he asked. She answered without looking up. "No, not anymore." The city kept glowing outside the window, but inside, everything felt still. It was a Friday afternoon when Mara brought Vicky to the office. His school had closed early for a teacher workday, and she didn't have time to arrange coverage at home. He didn't mind. He liked new spaces, and Davis Holdings looked more like a tech museum than a business. Mara walked him through security, signed him in, and gave him clear instructions. Lobby only. Tablet stays on silent. Do not bother anyone. Vicky nodded, hands tucked into his hoodie pockets. "Yes, ma'am." She handed him a set of headphones and kissed his forehead. "I'll only be an hour." He took a seat near the tall window, where sunlight poured in. His legs didn't quite reach the floor. From behind the front desk, the receptionist smiled at him. "He's very polite." Mara smirked. "He's been trained." She disappeared into the elevator, leaving Vicky in the glow of mid-afternoon quiet. He pulled out his tablet and settled into the oversized chair. Nico stepped into the lobby 15 minutes later, on his way to the parking deck. His tie was loosened, and his jacket rested over his shoulder. His eyes scanned the lobby instinctively. He always checked the room, always registered who came and went. He saw the boy sitting by the window. Something about him made him pause. Nico didn't recognize his face. But the feeling, immediate, sharp, unshakable. He didn't know the boy. But somehow, he'd heard that voice before. The boy turned his head slightly, adjusting his tablet volume, and said, almost to himself, "Stupid ads." Nico froze mid-step. That voice, it sliced through years of silence like glass breaking across a clean floor. The storm, the landline, the boy crying, "My mommy collapsed." It wasn't just a memory anymore. It was right there, in that room. Nico took 2 slow steps closer. The boy didn't look up. He hummed now, distracted by something on his screen. Nico's voice came out low, careful. "Hey, kid." The boy looked up. Same deep brown eyes, same quiet awareness. Older now, but not changed. "You waiting for someone?" "Yeah," the boy answered. "My mom. She works upstairs sometimes." "What's her name?" "Mara Lyon." Nico staggered back half a step. He didn't mean to, but his body reacted before his mind could process it. His chest tightened. His breath caught. He sat in the nearest chair, gripping the armrest. It all connected. The voice on the phone. The panicked child. The call that haunted him for years. He had saved this boy's mother, and now he'd kissed her, held her, slept beside her. Nico ran a hand down his face. The room dimmed around him, soundless, weightless. He didn't need more confirmation. He already knew. Nico leaned forward slowly, still seated. His voice came out quieter this time. "Your mom? She ever talk about when she got sick?" Vicky blinked. "You mean when she fainted?" Yeah, he said. "I was 7. She was reading to me, and then she just dropped. I thought she was kidding at first." Nico swallowed hard. "What did you do?" "I tried to wake her up. I couldn't. Her phone was locked, so I used the wall phone. I called, I don't know." Nico's chest pulled tight. He tried to keep his expression still. "And someone answered?" "Yeah," Vicky nodded. "Some guy. He stayed on the line the whole time, told me what to do, told me how to check her breathing and everything." Nico looked at him for a long moment. Vicky tilted his head. "Why are you asking?" Nico couldn't find the words yet. He reached into his pocket and handed the boy a wrapped candy from his desk stash. "Just curious," he said. Vicky accepted it with a shrug and returned to his screen. Nico sat there, heart pounding like he'd just run miles. So it was true. All this time, Mara had known. All this time, she'd been standing in front of him, with that truth in her back pocket. He didn't know whether to feel honored or betrayed. But one thing was certain, he needed to see her. Now. Nico stood slowly, then walked back toward the elevators, but changed direction. He didn't want to text, didn't want to call. He wanted her to see his face. He needed to see hers. By the time the elevator doors opened, he was already unbuttoning his cuffs, jaw tight. He bypassed his assistant's curious stare, walked past two staff members in mid-conversation, ignored a client waiting at reception. She was in the secondary conference room. He didn't knock. He opened the door and stopped. Mara stood at the far end of the table, holding a document. She looked up, saw his face, and her eyes widened before he said a word. Nico stepped inside, closed the door quietly, and leaned back against it. "You knew," he said. She said nothing. "You knew it was me," he repeated, voice low. All this time, Mara placed the folder down carefully. "I did. And you didn't say anything? I wasn't sure what it would change." "It changes everything," he said. "No," she replied. "You changed everything when you picked up the phone that night. The rest, I let it unfold on its own." He stared at her, stunned by how calm she looked. Strong. Unapologetic. "You could have told me. You could have remembered sooner," she said. The room stretched wide between them. No yelling, no defenses. Just two people standing in the middle of something too big to ignore anymore. Nico didn't move from the door. Mara didn't move from the table. His voice was low but firm. "It was you?" She nodded. "Yes." His expression twisted, not with anger, but with the weight of everything suddenly fitting together. The past, the call, her silence. "You let me stand in front of you for weeks," he said, "without knowing I once held your life in my hands." She didn't flinch. "You weren't supposed to know." "Why?" "Because it would have changed how you saw me," she said, "and you already had your assumptions lined up." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You never trusted me, Nico. Not once. Not in the boardroom. Not at dinner. Not even when I earned every inch of space beside you." His jaw locked. "You thought I was another consultant looking for an angle. You never asked if I needed anything. You just tested me. Over and over." "I didn't know," he repeated, quieter now. "No," she said. "You didn't want to." The silence cracked like glass. "I let you lead," she added. "I let you think you held the power in the room. But the truth? You've been standing next to the same woman your company owes everything to, and still questioned if I belonged." Nico exhaled, shaken. She stepped around the table, calm but cutting. "Now you want the truth?" He nodded, unable to speak. "Then sit down, because I've carried it longer than you have." Mara sat in the chair across from him, but her spine stayed straight, her hands still. "The night I collapsed," she began, "I thought I was dying. I felt the air leave my chest like someone unplugged me from the world, but I wasn't scared for me." Nico didn't interrupt. "I was scared for him. For Vicky. He was only 7. He thought I was joking until I didn't move. He had to be the one to act. And he did." She looked at Nico directly, but he didn't call 911. He didn't reach a neighbor. He reached you. Nico's eyes dropped. Your voice was the only thing keeping him from breaking. You kept him calm. You talked him through the steps. You gave him something to hold on to. Her voice tightened. "When I woke up in the hospital, I didn't know who saved me. I just knew that a stranger picked up when no one else would." She exhaled. "Vicky didn't remember your name, but I remembered your tone. It stayed with me." She let that sink in. "So when I saw you in that boardroom and I heard you speak again, I knew." "Why didn't you tell me?" Nico asked again, voice softer this time. "Because I needed to see who you were now," she replied. "Not the man from that call, the one in front of me, and—" she folded her hands. "You were smart, you were capable, but you were arrogant, suspicious, always assuming I had something to prove. I was protecting the business." "No," she said. "You were protecting your ego." The room filled with truth, and neither of them could walk away from it now. Nico sat back in the chair and didn't try to defend himself. Not this time. He rubbed a hand over his face. The sharp edges of pride and control he once clung to had dulled into something closer to regret. "I was wrong," he said quietly. Mara didn't reply. I made assumptions about you. About why you were here. I thought you were just like the others. You wanted to believe that, she said. I did, he admitted, because it made it easier not to care. She looked at him, steady. I care now, he added. Silence. I know I messed up, Nico continued, and I can't fix what I said. I can't fix how I treated you, but I can tell the truth. He leaned forward slightly, voice steady. You scared me. Not because you were strong, but because I could feel how easily I'd fall for you. And I wasn't ready. Mara's eyes flickered, but she didn't speak. I kept telling myself you were too perfect, he said. That there had to be an angle. But you weren't playing a game. You were surviving. She blinked slowly. And you didn't owe me kindness, he added. But you gave me space. You let me catch up. And I ruined it. Still, she said nothing. Nico's voice cracked for the first time. I'm sorry. No pitch, no performance. Just one man laying down the weight of everything he never said. I never forgot that boy's voice, he whispered. Now I'll never forget yours. Mara stood slowly, walking toward the window. Outside, the city was beginning to darken. Office lights flickered on. The sky settled into evening. She crossed her arms, not in defense, but in thought. Behind her, Nico stayed quiet. She finally turned. I've heard apologies before, she said, from men who swore they didn't mean to judge me, from men who didn't know what to do with a woman who wouldn't shrink. I'm not them, he said. You were, she replied, but maybe you're not anymore. She walked past the table, past him, toward the door. He stood as she reached it. She turned once more. I don't want a grand gesture, she said. I don't want flowers or promises. What do you want? I want consistency. I want respect that doesn't change with how you feel that day. He nodded slowly. I want a man who knows how to carry a moment like he carried my son's voice, without needing credit for it. I can be that, Nico said. You'll show me, she replied. Not now, not with words, with time. He stepped closer, careful not to reach for her. She looked up at him. You once answered a call you didn't expect, she said. Now I'm asking you to show up again, but this time, with your eyes open. She left him there, quiet, humbled. But something in his face shifted as the door clicked shut. Not loss, readiness. The ceremony was small, just the way they wanted. A quiet garden behind a restored library. No stage, no crowd, no need to impress anyone. Mara wore ivory, simple, clean. Her curls were pinned back, but loose enough to move with the wind. Nico stood under the wooden arch, hands relaxed, gaze steady. He didn't look nervous. He looked settled, like this moment was the one he'd waited for without even knowing it. Vicky stood proudly beside them in a dark grey suit, taller now, holding the rings with both hands like he'd been given state secrets. No choir, no fanfare, just truth spoken in the open air. They said their vows quietly, but with full hearts. I don't need perfect, Mara said. I need present. I'll never walk away from the sound of your voice again, Nico replied. The guests clapped, but the loudest sound came from Vicky, who grinned as he clapped first. Later that evening, as they signed the final marriage certificate, Nico placed his hand over Mara's. No more guesses, he said. We build everything on solid ground now. She looked into his eyes and nodded. It wasn't about new beginnings. It was about finally arriving at the place where they both could stay. It happened on a Sunday morning. Nico was fixing breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee. Mara had stepped out to run a quick errand. Vicky sat at the table flipping through a comic book, hair sticking up in all directions. Nico reached for a plate. Scrambled. Okay. Yep. Silence. Just the sizzle of the pan. Then Vicky cleared his throat. Hey, Dad? Nico froze. He turned slowly, not sure he'd heard it right. Vicky didn't even look up. I mean, if that's okay. Nico blinked, trying to find breath. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, that's more than okay. He turned back to the stove, pretending his eyes weren't burning. Later, when Mara came home, Vicky didn't mention it. Neither did Nico. But that night, as they sat together on the couch watching a movie, Nico gently wrapped his arm around both of them. Vicky leaned in. No need to speak it again. The word had landed where it needed to. Not out of obligation, but out of choice, and Nico would carry that word like a promise. The press release was short. Davis Holdings had quietly allocated a 7-figure fund for early-stage women-led startups, particularly those in underserved areas. No fanfare, no interviews, no corporate gala, just a signature at the bottom. Nico made sure the announcement listed one line that mattered most, in honor of Mara Lyon, whose strength makes the world move. When she saw it, she didn't cry. She stared at the screen, then looked at him across the room. "You didn't ask me," she said. "I wasn't looking for your permission." She raised an eyebrow. "Just your name?" "No," he replied. "Just the truth." She closed the laptop, walked over, placed her hand on his chest. "You didn't need to do that. I needed to remind people what power looks like when it doesn't ask for credit." She stood there for a long moment. "You're not the same man I met in that boardroom," she whispered. "No," he said. "I've met you now. There's no going back." She kissed him gently, then stepped away. He didn't follow her. He didn't need to. Because for the first time in his life, giving was no longer a transaction. It was a reflection of her. The elementary school hallway smelled like fresh paint and pencil shavings. Mara walked beside Nico, both of them moving at an easy pace. Their hands brushed, then linked. They didn't speak. Ahead of them, Vicky jogged with his backpack bouncing on his shoulders. He turned back once. "Hurry up." "We're coming," Mara called, laughing. Nico watched her face as the sound faded into the hallway. She leaned her head on his shoulder just for a second. "I didn't think I'd get here," she said. "You did," he replied. "I didn't think I'd trust someone again." "You did." She smiled quietly. "I'm still watching you." He smirked. "I know." They reached the classroom door. Vicky waved quickly, then disappeared inside. The hallway emptied slowly. Mara turned to Nico. "You know what I think about sometimes?" "What?" "If that call had gone to someone else, if you hadn't picked up, if my son's voice had landed on a line that stayed quiet, he didn't speak, I wouldn't be here. None of this would." He took her hand and squeezed it. "I didn't save you, Mara," he said. "I just answered." She nodded. That was enough. Sometimes the wrong number reaches the right soul, and one moment, one choice, can build the kind of family no plan could have ever imagined. Life doesn't always give us second chances in perfect packaging. Sometimes it shows up as a storm, as silence on the other end of a phone, as a child begging someone, anyone, to care. But within that chaos, something steady waits. The kind of love that doesn't need to be loud, the kind of strength that doesn't ask for permission, the kind of healing that begins the moment we choose not to walk away. Mara didn't collapse because she was weak. She fell because she carried too much alone for too long. And Nico didn't save her because he was a hero. He did it because he answered when it mattered most. That's the heart of this story. Not fate, not chance. Choice to listen, to stay, to show up, even when no one's watching. To love without proving, to rebuild without rewriting, to forgive not because someone deserves it, but because you deserve peace. So if you're holding pain or carrying your world on tired shoulders, let this story remind you, you are not hard to love. You are not too strong to need help, and you are never beyond the reach of grace, because sometimes the right people find you in your worst moment and choose to stay for your best. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Share it with someone who still believes in love, redemption, and starting over. And remember, your voice matters. Your story might be the one that saves someone else. Thank you for watching Mr. Victor Storytime. Until next time, stay grounded, stay brave, and never hang up on the call your heart was meant to answer.